everyone. I am Rhonda with Sawgrass. Welcome. We're very glad to have you here with us today. And with our Learn with Sawgrass workshop today, we're going to talk about sizing designs for t-shirts. So we're going to look at some ways to do that. We're going to talk about some ways to size that and some general ideas about what size should be. And then we're going to jump into our programs for a while too to look at that. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right. And yes, so if you haven't noticed, we are now putting all of our workshops into YouTube. By the end of the month, you're going to see that YouTube is kind of our education venue. If you haven't checked it out recently, there are going to be some quick tips. Those are fantastic quick looks at some things. The most recent one that I uploaded, Rhodes did a great video on the color tab in Sawgrass Print Utility. So that's a really great quick tip to check out. There's some others in there too. All of our current content in the Academy, as far as the getting started videos, we are reshooting or have reshot those, and those will be loaded in there as well. And then on top of that, all of these Learn with Sawgrass workshops are in there, and I will try to at least link to these notes that I'm about to show you, so you have access to those as well. All right, so this is sizing designs for shirts. So the general rule of thumb is that the design should start 3 to 3.5 inches from the top, so from that collar on the shirt. And then it really just depends. So there's a few things with how the shirt size should be. So one's going to be dependent on your printer. I put 8 in here. The general thought is closer to 9, but I know that wouldn't fit on your SG500s. And I know a lot of you are using SG500s for shirts. So kind of that 8 by 8, or even 8 and then longer would work for a shirt. And then depending on the size, the smaller sizes are closer to that 8 to 9 range. And then the larger shirts are usually 11 to 12 inches, as your dimension. Now, there's tools out there, you've probably seen them, those handy dandy tools that kind of fit around the collar to help you see the center, to help you make sure that you're putting it down far enough and that it's centered on the shirt. But what do you do if you don't have one of those handy? Well, one of the easiest methods is to fold the shirt in half and then to fold that in half again. So you're getting the exact center and you can see where that is. And then you'd use a ruler to come down your 3 to 3.5 inches from the top. If you're doing vinyl, you're often told that you can press the shirt. I don't know that I would press those creases into the shirt if I was sublimating, but what I would suggest is you can use chalk. So you can use chalk to kind of mark those lines so you can see them. Chalk is really easy to wipe off. Even if it is pressed, it's not going to stay in the shirt. So that's kind of a good way to kind of mark your points, just so you know where that is. And again, you know, it really depends on the size of the shirt and also the size of your printer. There's some great shirts out there that do have the smaller designs. There are also going to be ways that you could actually have the smaller printer and then do designs that you could spread out. So instead of it being a square or a rectangle, you could do smaller items. And then just when you put them on the shirt to press it, put them on there separately. So then you're able to spread that out and make that design work better. So even if you have a smaller printer, the SG500, there's some great things that you can do to make that work. All right. I did move forward. I don't know why it moved backwards. And so if we're talking about doing the back of a shirt, this is again that 8 to 12 inches, 13 inches. Designs typically are a little bit bigger if they go on the back of the shirt. You would measure again 3 inches. Now, we did say 3.5 for the front, so you are, well, you could do 3 or 3.5 for the front. For the back, we do 3. So it is a little bit higher up. And then again, you probably are going to do that slightly bigger. Same things I said for the front. You could definitely do chalk to kind of mark your points, knowing that'll wipe off. You also can fold that shirt and, fold it so you can see the points. You can either mark it with chalk, you can press it. Any of those things to kind of help you see where you're going on the shirt, or just use your rulers or that tool. I've seen the tool for sale many places, including Amazon. So you can always pick up one of those too to help with placement on the shirt. Well, at least you're getting a review each time. So when we talk about that little design, I call it the pocket or that area. Kind of the rule of thumb is you're coming down from about halfway through this collar, and then you are coming over from the bottom of the arm. And so where that meets is kind of where that design is. And kind of the rule of thumb for most adult size shirts is going to be 4 inches. You could go 3 if it's like a small or an extra small. And then as we get into youth sizes and even into toddler sizes, you're definitely going to go more that 2 to 3 for those. But in general, the rule is 4 for an adult shirt. So I'm going to talk about onesies too, but before I do, what tips do you have? What are some things that you do when you're sizing your shirts to make sure that it's lined up and everything's perfect? Do you disagree with the sizes that I pulled when I went online and looked at a few sources?
I use the pre-made templates and I get the paper ones. They have a file on Creative Fabrica that's really inexpensive. You just print it on your regular printer and cut it out. And that way, when you forget to remove it, it's not plastic and it doesn't melt to your shirt.
That's perfect. So it's a paper one that you can purchase.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has several different files. So it has all the way down to the infant one piece up to, I believe it was 4XL.
Mm.
And you can just print them out on your regular printer, cut them out, and it's got the cutout for the neck, and you just put it on there. And it shouldn't surprise you any that I left a plastic one on a shirt.
Yeah, I did say this earlier. I've been sublimating all day. We're doing some filming this week for some of our holiday content, and I was pressing a Santa hat with the little cute little cotton ball at the top, and there was no way on the press I was using that I could get it off of the press. So I'm like, well, let's just see what happens. Yeah, it melted. So it fell off the hat and melted. So it's rather
And
cute. May end up on our Instagram story by the end of the day.
you know what? We laugh at mistakes and then we move on.
There you go. I told him, I said, you can either put this on there and say, always follow the instructions, or you can just say, even the pros make mistakes sometimes. All right. Any other tips with sizing adult shirts? Anything you've tried that works or anything that you've tried that doesn't work? All right. Okay, so baby bodysuits, baby onesies. This is actually going to be closer to 1 to 1.5 inches from the bottom of the collar is where that starts. You're going to find the middle again by folding. Again, I recommend the chalk method. You don't see designs on the back of the onesie as often, but generally same rules. Inch, inch and a half down. And then generally the design, again, some of this is dependent on the size of the onesie, whether it's for a newborn or whether it's for maybe a 12-month-old. You're going to do that 3.5 to 4 inches is kind of the size of that design area. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our design tool. And this is I'm going to go out actually and start this over. This is the design tool within my Sawgrass. I'm on actually my studio. So if you don't know the difference, studio is going to be your internal projects. And then your store, if you're in the US, is going to be your social selling storefront. Every customer gets one. This is not tied to the MySawgrass Plus or any kind of cost. You have your own store that you can share and you can use for that. But I'm going to go ahead and hit design and go back into my design tool. And I want to talk about apparel in here. So we do have those clothing templates set up. So you will see we do have shirt sizes for youth. We have ones for adults. We have both fitted and relaxed as well. So we have a lot of variety here. And this is always a good place to start. You definitely could do this, especially if you're adding it to that store that we just talked about. But honestly, that's not what I would do. If I was just making shirts in general, I am probably coming down to custom canvas and then sizing that to completely fit my area. Now, the other thing that you can always do, I'm going to go back out one more time because I haven't got to talk to you about this in the workshops. So one of the other things that we have now added is this concept of blank sheets. So if I were doing a shirt, I would probably just go ahead and do a full 8.5 by 11. I would do, if I had a larger printer, I would do an 11 by 17, just so I'm getting that full area. Now, if I have an SG 500, I'm probably just gonna select an 8.5 by 11 page. If I were doing 11 by 17, I probably would go to custom canvas, and that's so I can make something that's smaller, because 11 by 17 is a little big for a shirt. More like 11 by 14 would probably be what I would do if I was doing that. So I actually will show you. I would probably go somewhere in a 10 by 14 range, would be the way I did it. You can add that bleed in as well. And then I'm going to start designing. Now, once I'm into my canvas and I'm ready to go, I can come in and I can design on my own, or I can use that pre-made design by us as well. So I actually was looking here earlier. And let's do something like this. If I were doing a design like this, I could take that and I could design that to fit and work the way that I want it to. Go ahead and size that. Now, this is going to my 10. You could actually spread it out a little bit. I talked about that earlier, to kind of make a bigger design and then maybe have some pieces that you can cut out. We'll look at one of those in a second. But you can really make this your own, resize that. Remember that with anything in here, if these aren't what you're considering to be your Christmas colors, you can always come in and click on those and change those colors too. So there's lots of fun things that you can do with that. But with my area, actually gonna come in here and I'm gonna make this smaller. So let's say that I was working in that 8.5 by 11 area. I'm just gonna make this 8 by 10, so it works for me. And I want to explain what I mean. So if I were designing something and I wanted it to be bigger on the shirt, but I'm limited to that 8.5 by 11 with my SG 500, what you can do is you can come in and if you were to put your text, you can get that text to be however you want it to be. I can come in and choose my font. I'm going to go with a script today. I'm going to make this slightly bigger so I can see it. I can come in and do whatever font I want. I really like that. Ah, perfect. So I could come in and I could size this, get this the size that I want it to be. So in this case, it's about 4.25 by 4 by 6, which I think is a good size for the actual text. I'm going to come in and change my color. And then let's go back out and let's look at some Christmas elements that we have. So you can come in and add anything that you may want that you think kind of does this and makes it look the way you want it to. Something like these black and white ones are really cool because you can go in and color those. I'm looking for something more in the green family since I am pretty heavy on the red with my text. You also, of course, can search. So if you were looking, you could go in and do a search for any of the words to kind of help you as well. Actually, may just stick with the red and do some candy canes. Now, one of the things that people do occasionally ask is, do you have the ability, like an eyedropper, to see what the color is? Well, I don't, but I do know that I've got my candy cane selected. I can come into my red. I can grab that hex code. And then now, if I wanted to keep this design very red, I could go in again. Get all the way out. Select my text. And nothing's wanting to select for me today, but that's okay. We're going to click on it and then I'm just going to change that hex code. And now it's going to match. So I don't have the eyedropper, but if it's an element that we've added into the program, you are able to see what that is and then make sure they match. So let's put that candy cane there. Let's duplicate him. I'm going to rotate this guy there. And then the duplicate those are there. And I flip them so I can just quickly add those. I have all my little designs. Now, when I print this out, and this was kind of what my point was, let me click out of here. So when I print these out, I could cut them and then put them around on the page so they are further away and they're not right against the text as they currently are. So that's a good way to take a design and then make it larger. So even if you do have that 8.5 by 11 limitation, you could print this. You could even do another full sheet of the candy canes or any of the other artwork, and then just cut those out and put them down when you press sublimate to make that design a little bit bigger for you. I'm going to go ahead and save this. All right. Okay, so that's the basics of what I had for you today. Just a really quick look at saving, and let me see. I do see we have a question. All right, so yeah, so this is just some easy ways to do it. I will do have something else I'll show you or I'll go over with you before we leave. But what questions do you have? What other tips and tricks do you have that you use when making shirts and in sizing designs for shirts?
Hi, my name is Heidi, and I do tiling where I have an 8.5 by 11 printer, but I cut my design into 4 pieces and then I piece them together and then I put them on the shirt and do it that way.
Yeah, that works too. So, a lot of it is, and this is something that back in my tech support days, I would say as well, is you really just need to design or design in a way that works for what you're doing. So if I'm designing something that's going to go on a shirt that is a bright or a light instead of on a white shirt, if I am doing something that's going to go on a tumbler that's a color, any of those things, that's going to change how I design. I'm probably not going to do a lot of bright colors. I'm probably not going to do any gradients. I'm most likely going to stick to darker colors. So I'm going to do blacks. I'm going to do navies, and I'm probably only going to use 1 to 2 colors in that design because you are competing with that color that's already in the background. When I use my Chromoblast, because generally, if you're going Chromoblast on, say, a color, I would do something where I would do, for Halloween, I would do a jack-o'-lantern, and then I would, typically what I do is I'd do a pumpkin shape and I'd put my word in the middle. So then I know that the word is going to be the color of the shirt. Same thing you can do with polyester designs too. But with the polyester, especially if you're doing white, you don't have to worry about that quite as much. You could do multiple colors. But if it's anything where, I'm going on to a color, I will often do that reverse effect. So that it just looks a little bit better on there. But a lot of it, like I said, when you're designing and you have the smaller printer, designing something that can be tiled or designing something where you can cut it apart and put it around. I do the same thing a lot of times with Caesar Easy Subli. So when I cut it, I'm not limited to the same space that I would taking a straight sheet and putting it on the paper, on the shirt to press. So, anything else? Any tips, tricks, or questions you may have about doing shirts or sizing for shirts?
Rhonda, when you're doing the baby onesies with the fold at the shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
the snaps at the crotch, what I see folks do a lot of times is they don't realize that that is going to affect your pressure. You want to definitely use foam or a pressing pillow and move that design up above those snaps and those folds. Otherwise, you're going to have a pressure issue and not get vibrant color in every space on your design.
Exactly. So a few weeks ago, and I don't just, as a general rule, I will do sublimation and then I may not actually be pressing for myself or pressing myself for a few months. So a few weeks ago, I hadn't pressed in a while and I was doing a shimmer cosmetic bag. And so it took me, I think, 3 to get it right. Because the first thing was the instructions I pulled up were incorrect. The next thing was just that, because that has an internal seam inside of it. And without that pressing pillow to flatten that out, you're completely in trouble. So then I remembered that and I had to fix that. So I had to go through about 3 or 4 to get it right. But I was telling the people that I was training that now that I remembered and I knew, I'm not going to have that issue anymore. I know what to do each time to get it right. So today, I have pressed a wide variety of items, but I've pressed a couple of pillows. And so same thing. Are the seams going to be inside? Am I going to be able to get the zipper outside of the press? And I talked about the mistake I made on the hat earlier today, the Santa hat. That's as simple as I'm going to use a handheld press for that when I press it tomorrow, to make sure that I don't have to worry about that. So yeah. So am I talking about print and cut? Yes and no. So when I'm talking about doing just regular sublimation, my True Picks or my text printer paper, and I'm putting that on a paper. The beauty of pressing on, so let's say I'm doing a polyester shirt and I have a sheet of True Picks. The paper doesn't go with the print. So it doesn't really matter, right? Like you can use them, you can leave it on the full sheet, or you could cut it. No one's going to see the lines. It's not really going to matter. And so when I talk about that, I'm just cutting it apart with a pair of scissors. It does not matter how that looks like. I'm just cutting it out to put it on the page. Now, when I talk about Caesar Easy Subli Heat Transfer Vinyl, then yes, I'm doing either print and cut from my Cricut software to the printer, and then I am putting it in my cutter and cutting it. And same thing with Silhouette. I'm going from the Silhouette software, I'm printing it on my Sawgrass printer onto the vinyl, and then cutting it before I press it. And so with either of those, yeah, it's an exact cut. So it's a little bit different. With the Chroma Blast, we often do what we call a rough cut. So we don't want to leave the whole full sheet because that does go with it. That is a true transfer. So we'll often cut with scissors, but you'll see the edges. So you're a little more careful with that when you do that. All right. Any other questions about shirts or sizing? If not, I'm going to walk through something else with you today.
Can I ask a quick question,
Of
Rhonda?
course.
Brand new to this.
Oh, yeah.
I purchased a secondhand 800
Okay.
and trying to figure everything out has been like overload on my brain because I'm trying to hurry. And so anyway, I bought 2 shirts to do Red Friday shirts and got home and realized they had too much cotton. They were 40% cotton, I think that's what they were.
Mhm.
Am I going to have to do something different, or am I going to be able to sublimate those?
Okay, so now you get my nerdy side. So we were talking about one of the reasons this morning, we were talking about the reasons why we love working here, and this is one of them because I get to nerd out, and I get to nerd out for you for just a second. So sublimation is a chemical process. By definition, it is when a solid becomes a gas and skips that middle step of becoming a liquid. So for true sublimation to happen, you have to have 2 things. So first of all, you have to have your sublimation ink on sublimation paper. Now, why is the sublimation paper so important? Because the ink stays on top. That's why we don't use regular copy paper, because some of the ink does absorb. So you have sublimation paper, and on the other side, you have a blank that has a poly coating. Now, it's truly polyester. So when we have a mug that is a polyester coating on the mug, When we talk about fabric, that's why we talk about 100% polyester. And so what happens is when the heat is introduced and the pressure, two things happen simultaneously. First, the ink becomes a gas and floats off the paper. On the other end, the pores in that poly coating open up. And so the ink travels. Now, this is why the pressure is important, is because that's what keeps it going in a straight line. So that's why we have both pressure and tape so that it's going straight ahead and that design's going right into the pore right in front of it. So when you ask about fabric, and then of course, the end of this, of course, is that when the heat is removed, the ink is now a part of that coating as it becomes a solid again. So when you ask about polyester, if I have fabric that is 100% polyester, that ink is going to become one with all of the fibers. If I have a shirt that's 80-20, then and it's 80-20 polyester, then it's going to become a part of 80% of that. Now, if I'm at a 50-50 shirt, then only 50% of the fibers are getting it. The other 50% are not. So you get more of that vintage design because you're not getting 100% coverage. So when you talk about that 60-40, and if it's a red shirt, you're up against two things because you're putting color on a shirt on color, and then also you're dealing with that 60-40 mix.
And I looked up that it was the opposite. 60
Okay.
cotton. I think I got to
60
return
cotton.
some shirts.
Yeah, I would never go 60 cotton. You really all are getting very little design on there. If you're going 50-50, again, it's what I said earlier about you can design for anything. So you could do a design that looks good vintage and looks good with that kind of not full coverage. But in general, my rule of thumb is 70-30 at the most. Typically, what I say is go to a fabric store, buy a couple of yards of 100% polyester, and that's what you use for testing. And then that's what you know the perfect design looks like on 100% polyester. And then you can start playing from there and getting shirts that may be a little less than that. It really depends. Some people like 50-50. I'm not a big fan. I'm more of a 70-30, 80-20 gal. Does anyone else have anything on that with the polyester?
I
Um,
have one thing. So hi, my name is LaDonna. She mentioned that she had two issues. She had a cotton shirt, but she also had a red shirt.
Yeah.
I don't believe that red is considered to be a light.
It depends. So generally my rule of thumb is lights, brights, and whites.
Right.
So when I talk about a red, I'm talking about a Christmas red, and I've had good results with that. When you're talking about a burgundy, burgundies are out. Anything that's on the dark hues are going to be out. So your burgundies, your maroons, your navies, your blacks. With grays, heather gray is better, like the lighter gray. The darker gray tends to be a little too much. But again, it's playing with it. A black design on a darker gray may work. But typically, I tend to stay in more of the neon family. So it really depends on what red you're using. But
Right.
there is a red that will work pretty well.
Yeah. Neons and pastels will probably work.
Lights
But
and brights. Yep, that's the
yeah.
way I always say it.
Okay. I thought I heard her say red, and I just that's not
Yeah.
for a beginner. I would not recommend using a red. And then
Yeah.
Gildan has a Gildan heavy cotton, which is sound like what she mentioned. If
Yeah.
that number, it could be Gildan, and that red is a true red. So
Yeah.
it's quite difficult to get a design
It's
on a
really, yeah, and it's really, and then that's why I always say start with 100% polyester white and then kind of play from there. But typically your best place to start is a white polyester and then kind of play around. But good points.
Could I
Thank you.
offer something? This is Heidi again.
Hi, Heidi.
So I am new to this. I don't know if you guys can see me because I can't see me.
You're okay.
Um, I'm also new to this. So Eliza, I feel your pain. And I did my first sublimation on a white cotton shirt before I realized, oh no, you can't do that. So I did some research and I remembered that I bought a polyester coating, a liquid coating. So the cotton shirt was the only shirt I had to play with, so that's why I did it. So when I remembered that I had the coating, I got another cotton shirt, a white one, and I sprayed that coating on there, and it did not burn the shirt. The sublimation went really good through, and it was a little vintage color, but not too bad. So you can do sublimation on I haven't tried colored shirts yet, but
Yeah.
you can do them on the white.
Yeah, so
With that coating.
there's some products out there. There are both some papers, there's some powders, there's some liquids, like you said, that you can use. It really just depends, how well those work or don't work. The best place to begin is if you can get a hold of a polyester shirt, like a true polyester, that's usually the best place to start, and then you can kind of start playing from there. I typically do recommend try to stay with polyester as you're starting so that you get all the other kinks out. And then you can start working on trying different fabrics, trying some different processes, and doing those kind of things.
Yeah, I did it on a polyester shirt, and the colors are so vibrant. It's incredible.
Excuse me.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've, like I said, I've been sublimating all day, so I've been oohing and ahhing quite a bit. I've used quite a variety today. I've done shimmer and all of them from our dealers, but I've done shimmer, I've done the leatherette, so the faux leather. I've done the faux leather pillows. I've done the faux leather placemats today. I was doing some marble yesterday. So I've been doing quite the variety of products over the last little bit.
What I will say about those sprays, and Rhonda knows I've been doing this about 6, 7 years now. I have not found not one that holds up to the wash test. Those sprays will wash out and your design will fade. And
Lori, what is your target for number of washes?
I do 10.
10.
10 if it's 10 washes, and I just throw it in. They love me around here when they have to pay the electric bill because I will wash the same shirt 10 times in one day.
Mhm.
And they laugh because it's not a dirty shirt, and I out of habit I throw a pot in there anyway. But I do 10 and then I look at it. Now, what the other thing that I do is going back to buying that yard of 100% poly. I get 100% poly, and I wish I could find mine, and I think I might have given it away to somebody I was teaching, but then I got an 80-20 and a 70-30 and a 60-40, and I pressed the primary chart from the Sawgrass software so that I could see all 4 different ink colors and the transition from each count and what my item would look like for each specific color family. And I used to have that on like a ring. I actually like made holes in the fabric and put it on a ring, and it was, I think I did give that away to somebody that I was helping teach, but it's a great way to have a visual of what your stuff is going to look like. The other thing with the sprays and additives, I have not found one yet that passes the US test for children. Kids' clothes have a special standards that they have to meet, and so none of those should be used on kids' clothes because they have not got that. And Katie would know the name. There's a special testing and the
think
government gives them
Yeah,
that
but
seal.
I think you're trying to think of the fire retardant that
Yeah.
they put in.
It's not only fire retardant, but
Mhm.
it also has to do with skin allergies
Oh, okay.
and safety. So, and that's something that not even with clothing, you'll run into with a lot of blanks in sublimation. Especially if you're around Facebook and you go to the different buy-in groups, you have to be really careful with the children's products because buy-ins are getting them directly from China and they're not tested and they're not approved in the US for sale for use with children.
Thank you for that, Lori.
Yeah, that's been some great
My head up.
information.
Yeah, it's one of my things because people bring these things to me and I'm going, you know, you cannot sub on that pacifier and sell it as a baby pacifier. Do you see the rhinestones?
Yeah. Yeah, that would make it a little not safe.
Yeah.
But and there's so many of those little things. But I do know that several of you are newer. I would say my biggest episode, and you wouldn't, some of you know my history, some of you don't. I've been with Sawgrass. I just passed my 6-year anniversary. I started out in the care team. And I'd never heard of sublimation before I applied here. So I was starting at zero, like all of you did. I learned both ends. So I learned the technical side of it in the support team, but also I just loved playing. So there's always been a standing joke. I made it on my lunch break because I was always testing and playing with various things. Like I said, 6 years in, I still learn. So my biggest thing is just keep trying. I do recommend starting with blanks from a reputable dealer that have the proper coatings and all of that. And then, of course, with the fabric, try to get 100% polyester, at least to test on to kind of start. But my general rule is just play. Start out with products that aren't super expensive. I was doing my Christmas shopping this morning, what I'm going to sublimate for my family and friends. At this point, I know I can go with a little bit higher end blank. I can do those placemats. I can do those pillows because I kind of have the process down for those. But start with coasters, start with keychains, start with those smaller items that are a little more cost effective. So if you're making a mistake on a blank, it's not a $10 blank or $15 blank, it's a $3 or $4 blank. And so you can kind of practice and play. I'm lucky. I have lots of stuff at my disposal to practice before I go out and do stuff myself. But that's generally my rules for new people is just go ahead and play with it. I do want to show you a couple of resources before we go.
Everyone should keep some of their mistakes too. You need a tangible, visible thing so that you can see your progress and how you do eventually get it.
Yep. All right, so on the Sawgrass website, I am at sawgrassinc.com. There are 3 things that I want to show you. The first under this Learn menu is going to be Get Started. And what I want to show you here is the onboarding sessions. So I was talking about those quick tip videos earlier. They are from my colleague Rhodes. Rhodes does an onboarding session. It is a group onboarding session, but he walks through the software. He walks through the basics of setting up your printer and sublimation. So that is a great place to start. So if you haven't registered for an onboarding session yet, highly recommend it. It's a program that's very near and dear to my heart, and it's just a good way to get more information. Just another contact too of someone who can help you as you go. Also under Learn, you are going to see our knowledge base. Our knowledge base is from our care team. It is all of our technical stuff, but everything else you need is going to be here as well. So under something like getting started, you're going to see articles on the software. You're going to see information on setting up your printer, all of that. But also just tips and tricks and all of that information. That heat press setting guide is here too. Just another really great tool that you have at your disposal. And so this is huge. So underlearn, under getting started, signing up for an onboarding session if you haven't done that yet. The knowledge base has great articles, and those articles often have videos in them. Anything now that we are doing, we are starting right here in the knowledge base. That's a great place for you. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, our YouTube channel. That is growing, and we are adding in videos there. So that's another great resource for you as you're kind of getting started. All right. So
Rhonda, what is the YouTube channel?
yeah, so just go to youtube.com. Let me pull that up. So on youtube.com, if you go to, I think it's Sawgrass Technologies, want to make sure.
Okay, thanks.
Actually, it is Sawgrass Inc. Hold on for me. Yeah. All right, let me show you that. So it is Sawgrass Inc. is our page. And we do have multiple playlists here. Like I said, we have the success with Sawgrass. Right now, we have those unboxing videos there, but we do have some more that should be up there next week. We do have our Learn with Sawgrass, which is all of our Wednesday workshops get added here. And then the other area now is the quick tips. I will stop the sound, but we do have several of those quick tip videos in there to help you as well. All right. Any
That's good
other
to know.
questions?
Thank you.
What?
Thank you. That's good to know.
Yeah. Yeah, we've worked really hard, Rhodes and I, to kind of get some content in there to help. So any other questions before we go today? All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Kesley will be back next week with a great lesson. And we will continue like she usually does about 3 per month. I usually do 1. I'm always the more techie one of the group, but hopefully this is helpful. I'll get that up probably next week. And I'll make sure and add in those slides that I had in Canva too, just so you have those at your disposal. And if that's it, thank you all for joining, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.